Are you concerned about how to conduct a Sunday council in your class? You're in luck. I've got Kurt Francom on the episode today, and he's here to help. So if you're new to Sunday councils or you've been trying them and they just haven't been going as you would like, this episode is perfect for you. Welcome everybody to an episode of the This Mormon Life podcast. This is a podcast that's dedicated to helping you to be able to get more out of your membership in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We've got all kinds of episodes focused on commentary on social issues, ways to have a better family, movie reviews, and this episode is dedicated to teacher training. One of our big passions that we have is helping you be a better teacher. And this week we are all about the teacher council that we have going on during the first Sunday of every month in priesthood and Relief Society classes. And we know that this is something that's new for 2018. And we want to make sure that you feel comfortable, you feel confident and be able to deliver these in a way that your class, your quorum. And so I invited onto the podcast this episode is Kurt Francom of Leading LDS. How's it going, Kurt?
Good, Grady. Thanks for the invitation. I always love talking about these things.
Yeah, and you do a great job with it. Kurt shared 6 things that you should know, or 6 tips to be able to do a not teacher council meeting, but a council meeting. I wish it had a more definitive term.
The church is good at a lot of things, but naming things is, the fact that we still call enrichment the Relief Society meeting or whatever, it's like, come on, we need some marketing people in there.
We're tired of coming up with creative names. Call it Relief Society meeting.
Yeah.
There was one I heard they call it the Relief Society nighttime meeting. I'm like, it sounds like they're going to bed.
Nighty-night, huh?
It's nighttime for the sisters. But this is awesome stuff. So, Kurt, why don't you just bring us into what caused you to create this list, and what is the first point on it?
Yeah, so I created this really on the backbone of Leading LDS, which is an overall resource nonprofit organization to help lay leaders within the church enhance their ability and capacity as leaders. And we talk on a variety of topics, but this one is definitely a hot button right now, just because with these changes, there's a lot of understanding as far as what the church wants or what the guidelines are from our general auxiliary leaders. But when push comes to shove and people actually have to, put these things in place, it becomes much more difficult. And I've heard on several high priest groups or elders quorums where the leader, the elders quorum president, just sort of said, "Well, next week we're gonna teach the lesson." They're sort of, defaulting to those old habits of just teaching it.
Die hard in the church, man. We love our culture.
So hard. Yeah. And so they're not sure how to do this, or they think they understand what the council is, and so they're just going to maybe grab a good book or a Ensign article and teach a lesson. But this is so powerful, and I'm so optimistic as far as what the church has put into place, the power it has to really unifying our quorums and groups and relief societies, that we can really make a difference in our local communities if we understand how to do this. And so I surveyed our community, the Leading LDS community, and said, if somebody came to you and said, how do I effectively do these first Sunday council meetings during the third hour? What would you tell them? And so I gathered these ideas, came out to be 6 different points, and made a video about that and put it on Facebook. And I've been really surprised. I mean, I know that a lot of people are thinking about this, talking about this, but I've been really surprised sort of the mini viral wave that it's on, that it continues to get passed around. I'm getting all sorts of views and shares. And so this is definitely something that people are nervous about with this first Sunday coming up.
Yeah, the morning that it came out, I actually pulled work with my, and that was one of the topics that was on his mind was, I don't quite know what we're going to do yet. I've got a meeting with my counselors. We're going to figure it out, but we're not quite sure. There's definitely some guidance on the church's website, but not a ton. And so it's nice that there are supplements out there like your video and like this podcast. We're trying to say, if that wasn't enough for you, we've got more. We've got more for you.
Yeah, and just like there's websites for the primary chorister to cute ideas and cutouts and coloring pages and whatever. This is something similar that here's some ideas and thoughts to think about before you walk into that meeting. So hopefully you're better prepared.
Yeah. So let's talk about the first point.
Yeah. So as I went over these, I don't know if there's any specific order, but I felt like the order I put them in kind of flowed well. But the first one is no lessons, no videos, no quotes, no talks, no books, because I just feel like this is the natural. You get a little nervous, or you have a leader that's a bit timid. They don't know how they're going to get this council going, this conversation going. So I better just have a really good conference talk in the back pocket, or we're gonna counsel about this lesson. I remember this really good lesson about temple attendance. We're gonna counsel about that. That's not a counsel. And if you read the instruction in the as far as what we're told to do, it talks about the point is to, I'm trying to find the exact quote, but to counsel about local responsibilities, opportunities, and challenges. And so sure, there may be doctrinal principles that come out, but I would hesitate before you make the conversation all about a doctrinal principle. You need to be talking about doctrinal principles as they apply to local responsibilities, opportunities, and challenges, and then counsel together. If we're in, Tucson, Arizona, and here we are, we need to, what's our local community? Let's talk about that. What are some needs in our local community that maybe the church can influence? What are you seeing out there? What makes this area different than Salt Lake City or Maine or Italy, right? And this, just start talking about understanding how you can impact it, and don't default. Just resist every temptation to pull out a book and say, well, I read this really good chapter and it made me cry and it was so spiritual. I want to share it with you, right? We've got to really push those natural tendencies away that we used to default to, because that is not what this meeting is about.
Yeah, and I think it's so great too that you bring up in point one is that there's always just that fear. And I think you called it a crutch, which I really liked. If you know you've got that lesson there, you're going to be tempted to go fall back on it. Be vulnerable, go out of your comfort zone a little bit, and trust that the brethren are inspired when they tell you to do this. And the beauty is that it is goal needs. That's the thing I liked as well, was that one quorum and their need might not affect another one. As an elders quorum president, you're on ward council, you see what is affecting the ward. You see families that maybe are struggling financially, families that are waning on activity in the church, families that don't feel like they need the whatever the problem is you're seeing in the ward. It's a great time to talk it out as men or talk it out as women and figure out, how do we do our part to solve this problem?
Yeah. And when I say things like no quotes, no talks, no books, I'm that's a bit hyperbole there, but because I think in some of the instructions that the General Auxiliary Presidency sent out, it says, you may want to use a quote and kind of kick off the council with that quote. So obviously there's some flexibility there, but my main point is just to communicate that we can't just, be nervous about this. So let's just teach about a good conference talk, right?
Yeah. And I see that a little bit sometimes in teacher council meetings, where we might counsel for about 4 minutes and then okay, let's go into the lesson now. I'm like, no, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
Help. But it's not my calling. So I do what I'm supposed to do. And I follow along and I join the conversation. Yeah. What's point number 2, Kurt?
So the next one I said is set rules and expectations. A few years ago, I wrote an article on Leading LDS called The 7 Unbreakable Rules of a Meeting. And I break down these 7 rules, and that's a list for a whole nother day. But and I got a lot of interesting feedback. Some of it agreeing with me on some of the rules. Some of people would say, oh, your rule number 4 or 3 was, I totally disagree with that, right? And that's fine. People don't need to agree with everything I think, even though I think they should. But the point being is that everybody that's presiding over a meeting, especially in a council meeting, you should set clear rules and expectations. And so one thing I mentioned in the video I made is that this is a great place to start with these council meetings, is to first start councils and say, what do we want to see from these councils? What are some rules and expectations that you see from me as the high priest group leader or the release side president? And let me share with you some expectations I have from you, and let's set some rules, right? And whatever those rules are, I think it's important to bring that council meeting some really strong structure, so that if it does kind of, take there's a curveball, or it heads out to left field, you can come back to those expectations and rules and say, oh yeah, but remember, we're going to stay out of that that area. We want to stimulate some discussion and some debate here. So let's stay out of that. And what can we learn from this, and kind of bring back the discussion in the council, right, to where it's supposed to be, like you said in that council meeting, that one of those rules may be we don't teach a lesson, and nobody prepares a lesson. And so if you ever see me preparing a lesson or pull out a conference talk, that's against the rule, and we're going to bring it back to the council meeting. And hopefully setting those rules and expectations helpful.
Is that expectations, like you're saying, is that expectations go both ways. It's what do I expect of us as a quorum in our discussion, but also what do you expect from me as your elders quorum president or counselor who's leading the discussion? What do you want? What are you expecting out of this time we have together? Sure that what you provide delivers on that.
Yeah. It's so important. And I think it's, and it gives you so much leverage in that as the leader in that quorum or group to say, listen, I expect you as members of this council to review the information I sent out to you. And if you come and you're not ready, well, man, that's going to make this a lot more difficult. So that's an expectation I have of you. And you can have the expectation that I'll actually send it out and give you a heads up of what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's actually one of the ones you bring up on the list is sending topics out ahead of time, making sure that people have time to ponder and think about what we're going to be discussing. Think, okay, what do I need in this area here? Let me that way I have time to consider it and then bring my concerns to the quorum or bring my solutions to the quorum.
Yeah. A good way to just be a killjoy for these meetings, for these council meetings. If you show up as the leader and say, what do you think about this topic, whatever topic it is, and then you point at someone, oh, what do you think? And this is the first time they've heard about that, and you've had a whole week to process this in your mind, and they've had about 5 seconds. And so by giving them some time and maybe some questions to ponder over, and then you come into that council meeting and say, well, here's a question let's start with the question number 1 I sent you. What's the thoughts you've had on this, right? It allows the spirit to sort of marinate that meeting beforehand so that when you're all sitting there, you're ready to go and it's not dead silence.
Yeah, I've had that in lessons where someone would say, hey, who has an experience with fasting they'd like to share? And I'm like, I'm sure that I do.
Right.
But right now, it's not coming to me. But if I got that email week previous and say, this Sunday's lesson is on fasting, and we're going to be talking about ways that we've been blessed by that principle, I'd start thinking about that. I might even see things in that week that cause me to have a bit greater testimony or greater understanding of that topic, and I'm now prepared to share. And it's the same thing with the council. Maybe the problem that you guys are trying to solve or the thing you're trying to talk about is having increased scripture study in the home. Okay, and now this week I'm gonna start thinking about how am I doing as a person? How am I doing or how are we doing as a family? And then I can bring my concerns now that I've been considering it and pondering it all week long.
Yeah. So it's so important. This is a crucial step, and we're at let's see, we're recording this on Thursday. Is it Thursday today? Or whenever it is. So we only have a few more days here to really send something out so that on Sunday you're going to be prepared and with people that are already thinking about this. So get it out there.
Yep. And if you missed it, you've always got next month.
That's right. And even if it's an hour before church, it's still worth doing that to get the wheels in their brain turning.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things you also brought up was the idea of setting a clear vision statement for the class.
Yeah, this is crucial. Just on the general topic of leadership, if someone's asked me, brand new elders quorum president, they said, okay, I've just set apart this past Sunday. Where do I start? Easily in the top 2 or 3 things I would tell them, it would be set a clear quorum vision statement. And the reason for this, and you look at the story of Captain Moroni. I love the story when the title Liberty, he set a clear vision as far as why they were going to war and what they were fighting for. And then I'm off the top of my head, I think it's chapter 42 in Alma, where they're in this war and the army is outnumbered. They're about to retreat. They're scared. They don't know how they're going to go up against the other opposing army. And Moroni, what Captain Moroni does in that instance is he brings them back to their vision. He reminds them what we're fighting for, the title of liberty. And so anytime you're leading a group, you have to have them anchor with a vision statement. And I get a lot of people saying, well, yeah, we got a vision statement. We have an area plan, or the bishop tells us what we're supposed to do, or the handbook does. But you've got to make it very concise and for your quorum specifically, because each quorum is going to be different. Each quorum is going to have different goals and expectations, even though the overarching goal is the same, right? And so by having a clear vision statement, the council, it gives that that quorum meeting any day, any Sunday of the week, but especially on the first Sunday when you're counseling, it allows you to anchor into something. And so whether, you mentioned personal scripture study, family scripture study, right? You could ask questions like, well, how does this topic, after counseling for 20, 30 minutes, how does this topic relate to our vision statement as a quorum, right? And then, so what you're doing is anchoring that quorum into that vision statement. So you're having progress towards that goal and vision that you have. If you don't have that, it's like, okay, one week we're talking about scripture study, the next week we're talking about temple attendance or whatever it is, and we've been instructed from the auxiliary leaders we need to have action steps at the end of this council meeting, and those action steps can just be all over the place. One day,
you zigzag around. You're like, I don't know what the flavor of the month is right now.
Exactly. One month you're maybe visiting a rest home and caring for them. The next month you're maybe doing visits to other people, or you're doing yard work or whatever it is. But by having a clear vision statement, it anchors that vision into the council, so that we know what these action steps are pointed towards, what we're trying to accomplish in general.
Yeah, I think it's so essential, and I love Stephen Covey. His principle with starting with that mission statement, and how you give that great example of the first quorum meeting or council meeting could be getting together as sisters, as brothers, and defining what your mission statement is going to be for 2018. If your ward has a plan, awesome. Figure out how your class, how your group, how your quorum is going to work towards making that goal happen, or making that ward plan happen. If you're an elders quorum, maybe you say, how are we going to help create our elders to be leaders in the home? If you're a Relief Society, you can ask, how can we help our sisters be articulate, what you feel like you can do to get them there. But the important thing is the quorum or the class has to be bought in on that. It can't be something where you say, I've decided this is what's important to you.
Yeah, it's crucial. It's a great place to start.
All right, what's next for us, Kurt?
The next one I would say, we've talked about a quick one. There's a quick one, obsessing over the room setup. It's easy to just sort of walk into a room and just take it for what it is. Oh, it looks like a youth Sunday school class was in here, and we'll have a seat. Sometimes we don't even think about how the room is set up. One thing I did as a high priest group leader is, the beginning of every high priest group, I'd say, all right, everybody stack the chairs. And typically we're the last word in the building anyway, so we're going to do that at the end of the meeting, as it was. So everybody would stack the chairs, and then I say, grab a chair and let's put it in a circle, right? So the room, it totally opened up that room. And I was in a very old church building, and so that room was already so small, but it completely opened up the room. We put it in a circle or a semicircle, and we were able to communicate. And it's amazing what these physical attributes, this physical setup does to the energy of a room when you do that. It focuses everybody in. Nobody can sort of hide. And when somebody comes in late and maybe they try and create another row, and make sure that you invite them into that circle, and that will stimulate further discussion in that council meeting.
Yeah, my deacons sit in a circle, and there'll be once in a while someone will, they went to the bathroom or to the library first, and they come in, they try to set up a chair behind. I'm like, there are no second rows in this quorum. Go ahead, move aside, everybody. Let's make a space. But it's so important, I think, especially in a council meeting, to have that set up, because in a typical, like you might see this in your gospel doctrine class, you've got the teacher up front and everyone in the rows lined up. And it's a very this way back and forth conversation. Usually if someone makes a comment, unless they are within your periphery, if they're behind you, it's really hard to not be engaged in that part of their commenting and conversation. In the circle atmosphere, it's very easy to take someone else's point of view and build upon it and share your own thoughts.
Yeah. And nobody will feel like the teacher either if you do that. If everybody should be seated and talking, and I think you're going to get great results.
So the way, not talk so much.
Yeah. For sure.
All right, and the last topic you bring up is, this is kind of a hotbed topic here, is stimulate debate.
That's right. So this, out of all the 6, I think this is probably the most difficult, but really in my opinion, one of the most important things that any leader presiding over a meeting, especially a council meeting, can do is stimulate debate. And one person on the video commented in that, I like discussion, not debate, because debate sort of has this negative connotation. And maybe it does, but there's nothing negative about debate. And a great book called Multipliers by Liz Wiseman, who's a BYU graduate, talks about the debate maker, that successful leaders are debate makers. And so, and I'm in Woods Cross, Utah, in the soul of Mormonism, right? And so, very conservative state. And I remember
the buckle of the Jello Belt.
That's right, the Jello Belt, nice. And we'll have these discussions in Sunday school or whatever, and it's just an echo chamber. And I agree with most of the things being said, right? And that's okay. I'm not saying that we need some radical, anti-Mormon thought to be included in the meeting, but a council meeting is so is the success or the debate of a council meeting is so crucial to the success of that council. And so you may have a group of high priests who are in the same generation, and yeah, they agree this. Yeah, I agree. Right. But if we don't have serious, strong debate, and I'm not saying, again, it has nothing to do with bringing in false doctrine or anything like that, but consider an outside perspective, right? And you may want to bring an outside perspective, maybe from the elders quorum, that just for 1 week to talk about this, however you're going to do it. But I think it's so important, and maybe this phrasing isn't appropriate in the church setting, but we need devil's advocates in these council meetings. Somebody who's just bringing up the opposite opinion, not because they believe it, but because it's stimulating discussion and helping them see different perspectives. And one thing you can do is you can point at one person and say, all right, you take that side of the debate, and another person, you take that side of the debate. No matter what you believe, I want you to act like you believe that for the next 5 minutes. And let's see what we can learn. And debate is such an important part of inspiration and revelation. Some of the best word council meetings I've been in is when there was strong debate, opposing views. But we're in this culture where it's like, oh, I disagree with them, I'm just going to keep quiet, and then I'll go home and complain to my spouse about this person and how I disagree with them, right? No, we need...
One of the great things, too, that you see on LDS.org, some instructions for the leaders, is to make it a place of protection. So it's okay to have debate, but make sure that people feel safe to be able to share their opinions, even if they might be different than most of the class. As the leader there, your role is to make sure that everyone feels comfortable sharing their opinion. So make sure that if you see maybe some ganging up, that might be a side of the argument that you try to at least either defend, support that person's voice, so they know they're at least being heard, even if we don't.
Yeah. So one project we're working on, hoping to release in the next few weeks, depending on how it all goes. But we're putting together a virtual summit called Teaching Saints, and so we're going to address all things teaching in the context of the church. Teaching Sunday school, teaching in sacrament meeting, teaching youth, teaching people with special needs, whatever it is. And we have it's going to be 20 to 30 hours of content. And what a virtual summit is just like a conference, online conference, where you would tune in and watch these videos and interviews. You can jump around to different sessions and, kind of have a buffet of content that you can pick from that will best enhance your ability and skill level as a teacher. So I've already recorded 15 plus of these sessions, and it is rich material I think most people will love. So you can get more information about that by going to leadinglds.org and just jumping on our newsletter, and that way we'll alert you when that is ready to go.
Yeah, it's a great resource. Like, I guess I kind of have a leadership calling. I serve with the youth, so I have some leadership there. I'm technically an advisor. The presidency is the leader, and I read my manual.
Just strange. Right?
And but even though I don't have like a technical leadership calling, I get a ton out of the podcast that Kurt has. I get a ton out of the website that he has. There's just so much content there, because even if you don't have a leadership calling right now, you wait 5 minutes for one. You will soon enough. Or just the fact that you probably have a responsibility of leading in your own home as the patriarch or the matriarch of that home. Or even if you're on your own, you still got a responsibility to lead yourself in the right way. So it's definitely worth your time to check that out. We thank you guys for joining us. We loved putting this together with you. We love being able to help you guys feel like you have everything you need to be everything you want to be. And on behalf of Kurt of Leading LDS, my name is Grady of This Mormon Life, and we wish you all a fond adieu. All right, guys, so I hope this episode has helped you to be a better teacher. If you want to see more of our teaching tips, you can see them right over here. And if you just want to see what some of our most recent videos, right over here, we'll find one that we think is a good fit for you. And of course, if you love these videos and you want to know whenever we have a new one, right here is where you can subscribe and always get notified when we have something new to help you to be a better Mormon.